But here's the good news. It's bat poop nuts. It's absolutely insane. And all that has to happen in order for this thing to begin falling apart, which is already happening, is you need enough people to wake up. You don't need to be pious. You don't need to be a Christian. You don't need to be a traditional Catholic. You don't need to be anybody special to not want what they got in mind. And this explains why guys like Joe Rogan and Bill Maher and all these guys are like, what the heck is going on? Who are these unelected fools?
Dude who dresses like Darth Vader. Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum. He's like a bad guy in a movie.
That spirit, that's going to take off throughout the whole country. It already is. Because here's the little secret. The people don't actually want what the lunatics are selling. Think about that. Nobody wants this. Think about your neighbors, your friends, people at church, whatever. Do they want broken economy, the trashed economy? Do they want America to disappear? Do they want that backyard barbecue and that football game on Sunday afternoon to disappear? America ceases to exist. We got no extra food for a barbecue or a Thanksgiving dinner. Economy's shot to hell. Do they want that? No. Does anybody in your life actually want under the skin surveillance?
People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century.
You know? That's what they want in Davos. Does anybody in the real world want that? Does anybody actually want the end of private property? Like what that little ferret up in Canada is doing? Anybody want that? Does anybody want the end of privacy? Does anybody want the rationing of energy? Does anyone actually want to drive around in those crappy little electric cars? I can tell you, not up here in Minnesota as the temperature starts to plummet. Good luck with that thing. Hope you can charge it up okay. Hope you don't get crushed by a snowplow while you're out there trying to charge your little Tesla. Does anybody want open borders? Ask the folks in southern United States right now how much they're enjoying the open border plan of George Soros. This is sheer insanity. Which is why so many people are waking up. And which is why we need to be confident that we can be part of the solution by waking them up even more. Give me an example. 2 days ago, Alex Brusowitz tweeted this. Well, you see on your screen it says, never forget when Trump went into the World Economic Forum, aka the globalist lion's den, and called them out straight to their faces. Right? And there's a video of that talk, which we use. We're going to talk about it in a minute. Now, that's good, fine. But then along comes the former president's son, Donald Trump Jr., and he retweets that, what we just had on the screen. And Don Jr. says, quote, Trump was on this before anyone, and he called them out to their faces, called Davos out to their faces, on their home turf. Jumping on this now and pretending it's novel thought is pretty laughable. Hear what he said there? That's a former president's kid actually competing with somebody else on Twitter over who was on to the lunatics of Davos first. Right? That's what that is. And it's true. Because we said the exact same thing when it happened 2 years ago. We were kind of by ourselves. That's a video that we did, millions and millions of views, because that struck me the same way. Listen to what he said. People were looking at Trump at Davos, and that's all they saw. The little background thing, you know, with the World Economic Forum behind. They said, he's at Davos. He's one of them. I actually listened to his talk, and I was like, oh my gosh. He literally went onto their turf and said everything polar opposite of what they believe. And he stuck a mega finger in their eye.
These alarmists always demand the same thing, absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country.
And guess what happened to him? They got rid of him shortly thereafter. Maybe you remember some of this. 2 days after Donald Trump gave that speech, the 89-year-old leftist weirdo billionaire George Soros made an emergency intervention where, at Davos, once again, warning that the U.S. 2020 election will determine the, quote, fate of the whole world. So we can't be distracted by all the baubles and whistles and pretty things on TV and our little gadgets and all of that. They're over there, the G20 folks, the Davos folks, they're over there plotting the downfall of everything we believe in, including our country, our hearth and home. We can't be distracted by the red waves and the blue waves and the personalities involved and all of that. That's just a distraction. That's what we started talking about last week. The real war, friends, is between us, between the children of light. As Usher Saviganov has said again and again and again, between the children of light and the children of darkness. The children of light are going to win if we continue to be the children of light. So it's us versus the globalists psychos, the lunatics who've declared war on the entire Christian moral and social order. You see? Us versus them. And there's the diabolical disorientation of folks like DeSantis or whoever they are. We can't expect them to be Charlemagne. We got to be content with what they bring to the war, bring to the battlefront. It's not going to be the whole story. It's not going to be perfect. But they're bringing part of it. They're bringing some weapons. They're bringing something that will help us advance. And anyone, friends, anyone who publicly stands against the Great Reset Satanists at this point is, in fact, advancing the cause of Christian patriotism.
Things like the World Economic Forum, those policies are dead on arrival in the state of Florida.
And it's the same in the church. Anyone who publicly stands against Team Francis is advancing the cause of Christian restoration throughout the whole world. It seems like every week now we come with a story of another bishop. We'll throw this one up on the screen here. It's this bishop from the Netherlands who's just pulled himself out of the Synod on Synodality. Is that because you spoke up, do you think? Is that because we spoke up? Did that have anything to do with it? Maybe. We don't know. All we know is another bishop. He pulled himself out of the Synod. He said, this is not of the Holy Spirit. I'm done. Yet another bishop, friends. Because, again, nobody wants this. Nobody wants what Francis is selling. Francis the globalist. Now, the New York Times, I'll close on this, I promise. The New York Times is no friend of ours. But even the New York Times is beginning, or at least some people at the Times are beginning to see what's going on here. On November 15th, 2022, for example, the New York Times religion columnist, one of them, Ruth Graham, published this. I'll put it up on the screen. A very favorable article on the resurgence of the traditional Latin Mass. Showed beautiful little children at Mass. Nobody looked crazy. Nobody looked like a psycho from the woods. Everybody's presented in this very favorable light in the New York Times. The New York Times, I don't need to remind this audience, is the paper of record. Not only here, but in Europe, especially in the Vatican. And the very last thing on earth that Pope Francis needs or wants is favorable coverage of Latin Mass Catholics inside the New York Times. Did you ever think that this was coming? And that article, that New York Times article, has now gone viral. But wait, there's more. On October 1st, 2022, we held a press conference at the Catholic Identity Conference. But yes, before God and history, we resist his agenda on the grounds that it does harm to Mother Church of Jesus Christ, a fact we believe to be demonstrably obvious, as the following interventions will make clear. Now, before that press conference got started, Ruth Graham from the New York Times contacted us requesting press credentials to cover that press conference at the Catholic Identity Conference. Well, guess what? Our statement of public resistance to Pope Francis made its way into the pages of the New York Times. At the conference in Pittsburgh this fall, Catholic critics of Pope Francis laid out 3 articles of resistance against the Vatican and its current leadership. Their top objection was to Traditionis Custodes, which they called an act of religious discrimination against traditional Catholics. You got it exactly right. Thank you, Ms. Graham, and happy Thanksgiving, Francis. It's spreading throughout the world, resistance against Francis's evil agenda. That's the takeaway. So resist them. Resist them until it hurts. Stand with God no matter what. And then sit back, friends, say your prayers, sit back and watch this stupid, idiotic, lunatical New World Order collapse before the eyes of the little people like us. The little people who never lost faith in God and who refused to comply with hell. Francis, Mr. Schwab, please read my lips. Long live Christ the King.